Good evening, I'm Sierra Williams. One of the more recent threats in the national fight against the COVID-19 pandemic is the emergence of several variants previously unreported in the US. The three variants of concern are B.1.17, also called the UK variant, B.1.351, also called the South African variant, and P.1, also called the Brazil variant. Last week, I touched on why these variants were evolving. This week, I want to talk about what actually makes these variants different from the original version of COVID-19, referred to in science as the wild type. Are these variants actually more transmissible? Well, to answer that question, I need to tell you about the coronavirus spike protein, because that's the region of the virus that has been substantially mutated in all three variants of concern. There has been some chatter in the media about the COVID-19 spike protein because it is the part of the virus that is targeted by all three approved vaccines. When looking at a picture of the virus, the spike proteins are the protrusions that look like spikes on the viral surface. Let's imagine that the cells in our respiratory tract are houses with locked doors and COVID-19 as a freeloader that breaks in, eats all the food, runs up the electricity bill, and leaves the place a mess. With that in mind, the spike protein functions like a lockpick, breaking its way into our cells. Because COVID-19 only recently jumped into humans, the spike protein still has room for improvement. In that sense, we can think of the new COVID-19 variants as better lock pickers. In addition to helping the virus gain entry to the cell, the spike protein is also the part of the virus that is neutralized by antibodies. If you are one of the people who has been infected with COVID-19 or received the vaccine, your antibodies know to look for the spike protein. As soon as COVID-19 enters the body, your antibodies jump on the spike protein like a NASCAR pit crew, preventing it from entering any cells. Eventually, a specialized immune cell will recognize the antibodies on the viral surface and engulf the virus, antibodies and all. However, several preliminary reports, including one from the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Research Center in Seattle, indicate a new mutation in the P.1 and B.1.351 variant, the Brazil and South African variants, appear to decrease the efficiency of convalescent serum antibodies. These are neutralizing antibodies taken from patients who have successfully fought off the virus. These are given to others currently suffering from severe COVID-19 symptoms. How this change might affect the course of the pandemic is unclear. Manus, Brazil, has been facing a surge in COVID-19 cases since the emergence of the P.1 variant, despite 3/4 of its population previously being infected with COVID-19. Experts are currently unsure if this wave is due to the population's waning immunity, or if the P.1 variant is actually different enough that previous exposure to the wild-type virus does not confer protection against infection to the new variant. There is no evidence at this time that either the P.1 or B.1.351 variant is more transmissible or produces more severe symptoms. While B.1.17, or the UK variant, has not reached Oklahoma, it is the most prevalent variant in the US, with 2,400 cases. This variant has demonstrated increased transmissibility, likely the result of the structural change in the spike protein formed as a result of a mutation which is not found in the other two variants. This conformational change means COVID-19 went from using a bobby pin to pick the lock on your front door to just breaking it open with a crowbar. In addition, this variant may be deadlier than the wild type our immune system is used to. according to a recent preliminary report by the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies in the UK, evidence suggests, quote, there is a realistic probability that infection with variant of concern B117 is associated with an increased risk of death compared to infection with non-variant of concern viruses, unquote. Ultimately, scientists are still learning about these new variants, so it's important for you to stay vigilant for new information about them as it becomes available. The CDC provides detailed information about the emerging variants, along with a complete list of guidelines on how to best protect yourself and your loved ones from becoming infected. This information can be found at www.cdc.gov. As scary as these variants seem, they have not been able to evade the protection offered by Pfizer, Moderna, and now the newly approved Johnson & Johnson vaccines. However, any new variant is a threat to vaccine efficacy, as all of these vaccines are targeting the spike protein, which we know now is the very region of the virus that is mutating. So remember to protect yourself from COVID-19 by following CDC guidelines. Before we go, here's an update on our COVID-19 case numbers. As of yesterday, Oklahoma is reporting a cumulative total of 425,000 cases and 4,534 deaths. The US is reporting 28.7 million cumulative cases and 516,000 deaths. Stillwater has a total of 5,989 cases and 24 deaths. As of February 28th, 2,489 of the Stillwater cases have come from the university. P1, or the Brazil variant, is the only reported variant in Oklahoma thus far. Join me next week for an in-depth look at the COVID-19 vaccines. With the Daily O, I'm Sierra Williams. Good evening, I'm Sierra Williams. In addition to being part of the Daily O team, I'm also a third-year PhD candidate in integrated biology with a focus in immunology and virology. As a young scientist, I am naturally skeptical of any information outside of a peer-reviewed journal or government website. In this era of COVID-19, we are all seeking the same information. What is this virus? Why hasn't it gone away? What will happen to me if I get sick? Will the vaccine work on these new strains? Many of us don't know where to turn to find this information or what information is true. This feeds into feelings of fear and isolation, which in turn increase the risk for the spread of misinfodemics. According to a 2021 article in International Sociology, misinfodemics refers to, quote, incorrect information about the virus which poses risk on a global scale, unquote. In addition to having adverse effects on physical and psychological well-being, misinfodemics also exacerbates marginalization and racism, reduces compliance to quarantine, proliferates hoaxes and conspiracy theories, and undermines the legitimacy of true scientific research. The goal of this segment is to prevent the further spread of misinfodemics by curtailing misconceptions, providing a basic understanding of the virus itself, breaking down jargon-heavy COVID-19 research, and doing my best from an aspiring epidemiologist perspective to help you understand what is happening. There has been a lot of talk in the media recently about the new coronavirus variants. Where did these variants come from? What happens if I get infected with a COVID-19 variant? Will the new vaccine still be effective against the new variants? I'm going to address all of these questions, but today I only have time to address the first one. Despite many reports claiming the virus is getting smarter or evolving faster, this is simply not true. Allow me to explain. When COVID-19 jumped into humans a little over a year ago, there were only a few founders, so to speak. Any mutations the founders had went on to become the dominant mutations of the new population, regardless of whether they were the best adapted. Now, the more the virus spreads through the world, the higher the chance of acquiring new mutations that would improve its ability to survive in humans. Several new mutations arose in the beginning of the pandemic by chance, not natural selection. The most recent variants, however, arose by natural selection. In simpler terms, this means the South African variant and UK variant plausibly improve infectivity and/or transmissibility. However, not all hope is lost, as there are things you can do to protect yourself against COVID-19 and the latest variants. Wear a mask when out in public and stay 6 feet away from others. Avoid crowds. Always wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with warm water and soap. For a full list of guidelines, you can visit www.cdc.gov. You can help prevent yourself from becoming a victim of misinfodemics by always fact-checking sources through credible websites like the CDC. I hope you will all join me next week, where I will talk more about the COVID-19 variants. Will the vaccine scientists told over still prove effective on these new strains? For the Daily O, I'm Sierra Williams.